You're watching SABC News live from Johannesburg. Your headlines this hour. The African National Congress, highest decision-making body between conferences, the NEC, has convened this weekend. The meeting aims to outline the party's future course following its January 8 statement and birthday celebration.
It's a tragedy because it could have been avoided if we had a situation where we had a just transition from large-scale industrial mining to small, medium and artisanal mining.
The Benchmark Foundation says intricacies of illegal mining would not have been registered if government prioritized the formalization of artisanal mining. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping had a productive conversation in their first phone call since 2021, with Trump describing the discussion as very good. Good afternoon, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Week in Review. For the next 2 hours, we'll be reviewing some of the biggest stories of the week, stories that kept grabbing the headlines. My name is Matric, and as always, it's wonderful to have you with us. We start here. More than 900 suspected illegal miners have been arrested in Limpopo between December last year and January this year. They were arrested during police Operation Vala Umgodi across the province. Meanwhile, mining forums in the mineral-rich Sekhukhune district are calling on government to issue them with artisanal mining licenses. The forums believe that the ongoing illegal mining is due to government's refusal to issue these permits to them.
The mountain valleys of the Sekhukhune districts are home to various minerals, including chrome and platinum. The mineral-rich district has attracted those who seek to find their fortunes. The mountains are now filled with trenches dug by illegal miners. In 2023, President Cyril Ramaphosa deployed soldiers to help cap the illegal mining activities in the country. Heavy mining trucks used in illegal mining operations have since been seized by law enforcement agencies. Those living in affected areas believe that if government were to issue them with small-scale mining licenses, illegal mining can be ended.
We was form our structure whereby we applied the mining license, and then at the end of the day, the DMRE reject us, whereby at the end of the day, some of the individuals, they go outside to hire illegal peoples to come and mine here, and then after mining here, they buy the chrome and sell to the Chinese.
We want the president to come here and assist us. We as the children of the soil, we cannot mine on our own soil. We want the president to form a task team that will come here and teach us how we can mine so that we can be like big companies. 932 suspected illegal miners have been arrested within a month. Firearms and ammunition were also confiscated. Those arrested are facing charges related to illegal mining activities, trafficking in counterfeit goods, and possession of unlicensed firearms.
We have been working very hard to combat illicit mining activities throughout the whole province. This we talk about your Sekhukhune, your Mopani, your Vembe, your Capricorn, as well as your Waterberg district. I can tell you now that we have arrested about 932 suspects from the 1st of December up until the 1st of December 2024 up until the 12th of January 2025. And out of the 932 suspects, 496 suspects are undocumented foreign nationals.
Mining contributes about 30% of the GDP of Limpopo. The provincial government wants the minerals to be processed in the province for local beneficiation.
We've already met with a number of captains of industry. If you remember, immediately after our inauguration, one of the sectors that we have been meeting, whether it's Anglo-American, whether it's DBS itself, whether it's Exaro, it's those within the mining sector, because we are saying to them, yes, it's good that you come and mine in our province. It's good that mining is contributing the higher percentage when it comes to the GDP. But however, we want to see more of our locals benefiting from those minerals. And the only other way is that we then must start to reduce exporting of raw materials as they are.
Police say they are tracking a suspected illegal mining kingpin allegedly involved in the smuggling of gold and chrome. Mahlatsi Paladim, SABC News, Sekhukhune.
Now, staying with that story, illegal mining would not have become such an alarming issue if government had prioritized the formalization of artisanal and small-scale mining. This, according to Kuma residents near Stilfontein, where the police operation Vala Umgodi is unfolding. Now, please note, the following report contains some content that may be upsetting to some viewers.
Kuma Township has more than 45,000 residents. It is surrounded by a number of disused gold mine shafts. Entering the township, one comes across community members who believe that illicit mining contributes to their local economy. Some illegal miners also live in this community. One illegal miner spent 5 months underground.
I was not working with the gold mine. I was pulling the rope. I was working on a level whereby I
was working on a level where we receive stock and receive people coming in or helping those going to the surface. These boots, as you see them, it's not safe in there. There are rock stones that will cut your feet. There are chemicals, and these boots are safe.
So normally we used the boots.
Following the commencement of Operation Vala Umgodi, targeting illicit mining, there were concerns that food was no longer supplied to those underground. Allegations that illegal miners resorted to cannibalism then resurfaced. This illegal miner has confirmed the rumors.
Definitely true.
Definitely true, it happened. They ate cockroaches, they even ate bodies of dead people. We were told it's pork. However, remember, since we went underground, we've never seen pork meat underground in shaft 10. I went in through shaft 10 and resurfaced at shaft 11.
With the retrieval operation nearing its end, the local youth in Kuma say non-operational shafts must not be sealed. They are calling for the formalization of artisanal and small-scale mining.
Government is supposed to regulate these shafts rather than closing them. These shafts boosted our local economy. There was cash flow.
If these mines can be active legally like so, and then we'll be very happy. Look at our parents, they look at us for them to be fed, so to put a food in the table. So we failed for that. Some of us, they dip in drugs. So if those mines can be active, we're going to be happy as community as well.
Local business owners say they benefited from the illegal mining operations.
We were doing business selling for them. We were gaining. For government to say they are foreigners, there are borders. Government must ensure that borders are controlled because they did not fall from the sky. What we did was to benefit from their presence.
This thing has affected us a lot. It has affected us a lot, especially for me as a young entrepreneur with a tavern. Before I had a lot of customers, not saying basically Zamazamas, but there were a lot of different people. But now we don't have those people, especially suddenly after the Vala Umgodi.
Meanwhile, the Benchmark Foundation says the consequences of illegal mining could have been averted if government had prioritized the formalization of artisanal and small-scale mining.
It's a tragedy because it could have been avoided if we had a situation where we had a just transition from large-scale industrial mining to small, medium and artisanal mining in that particular area. It is very traumatic for a community such as the one like Stilfontein, where tens of thousands of workers lose their jobs due to retrenchment as a result of the closure of mine shafts, and thereby lose their ability to feed their families and loved ones. The high levels of unemployment in South Africa is central to the problem of why people risk their lives going underground in very dangerous situations to go and look for gold and other minerals underground to sell on the surface. The Benchmarks Foundation, together with the Legal Resource Centre, ILRIC, and the National Association of Artisanal Miners, worked for 3 or 4 years in making inputs to the national policy on artisanal mining, and we would have hoped that that policy would have been realized by now and implemented.
While the formalization of small-scale mining is a dream to many, police say Operation Vala Umgodi will continue. Debogo Phakedi, SABC News, Kuma.
Welcome back. Mzwandile Magwai, one of the 2 volunteers at the forefront of assisting mine rescuers to retrieve illegal miners from underground at Shaft 11 in Stilfontein, has been arrested by correctional services for breaking parole conditions. Talking to SABC News on Thursday, Magwai said he chose to do right by the community as he has been serving a prison term for involvement in crime. He went underground with a cage that retrieved 246 illegal miners and 78 bodies from underground between Monday and Wednesday. It seems he went outside the boundaries of the address provided in his parole conditions when he went to assist in Stilfontein. Our reporter Debogo Phakedi and video journalist Mzwake Chabalala join us from Kanana. A very good afternoon to you, Debogo. What is the situation like at the moment?
Good afternoon, Mahagel, and of course, good afternoon to our viewers. If you are correct on that intro to say he is one of the 2 volunteers who went underground with a cage to not only retrieve 446 alive illegal miners, but also helped, government retrieve 78 bodies. He is also one of the people who were helping as far as using the pooling system to retrieve illegal miners from last year, October. Now, we were told that he has been arrested. When we asked correctional services, they said it's because he was outside the boundaries of his address as indicated on the parole conditions. We have visited his home in Kanana. We just want to talk to Ntombikai Magwai, who is his sister, Osi Relebukhelana kwa gago le family le ikutlwa jang ibile sa re sumole ka gore ga batla ba correctional services ke eng se ne ba se bu.
Okay, sisiluthetha nguNtombikai Magwai. Yo sive kabuhlungu andifuna uxoka sibuhlungu. Ukubona into esenza ukuthi sibe buhlungu umuntu ancede i-community kanti uzobanjwa.
You said he was in prison for 15 years and when he came back sana batla go se dira to assist the community. That is why ane a ile go Stilfontein. A ke sene a le ga sone gore ke sa batlang go se dira go thusa batho ba underground.
A ka tang ufuna uthusa abantu aba underground ne uthe ufuna unceda umphakathi babone ukuthi uchintshile ne kwinto ebezenza yebo ngoku nami ndiyamangala ukuthi baphinde bambambe yabo ngoba kwabona ukuthi zawuthini andazi bani ngacacisela njani kwabona bamyekile ukuthi aqale anceda abantu bathi nxa sekugqitywa ukhutshwa abantu ogqiba baphinde bambambe ndifina ngathi bebemyuza yebo.
We heard from the state that they will provide counseling to him and Mandla, the second gentleman who volunteered. Kotlase ba ile ba fa counseling eo pele ba ka tla ba motshwara counseling eo ile agree.
I-counseling ayifumene ile yokuthi abanjwe akafumana nga counseling and la mntu ne trauma akalala ebusuku unkwazi uthetha nami ubusuku bonke akalala ebusuku izidumba azibonileyo into azibonile phansi komgodi plus naba bantu bagulayo nabo umnuko ogqiba baphinde beyovalela umuntu onjalo bathi thina sifile njani siyifamily.
Ya nonkutla ore no yana you were told to take his toilet to correctional services as he's going to be sent to one of the prison. Agoyalo.
Injalo unfonele esithi ulapha eTlexdorp ne funeka ucela ndimsele izinto eBhayikhupa kanento zohlamba bamthathe engenazinto khange bamphitshanise ukuthi athathe izinto and yandicaphukisa lonto ngoba kwabona i-states siyamkwelita lo muntu lo simkwelita imiliyoni lo muntu lo usuke etrongweni engenzanga nix icase egwetjelweyo ugwetjwe ekudala ebanjiwe kutheni bangamnika imali zakhe sebebona ukuthi bona mabambambe i-state masimbhadala imiliyoni zakhe ezibamkwelita zona bamenza ukuthi intoni ingqondo zakhe zibuyele emva uzabuyela ebutsotsini xa bemenza so.
Mabane correctional service ile reng gore ne ba motsa
uthi bamnqandile nekwathi ungaphinde uvelele eTV sezingaphi celebrate mntasekhaya ekudala zivelela eTV zibanjiwe zi-under correctional zingaphi celebrate kutheni yena ngoba yena yo celebrate funeke banjiwe ngoba evelele eTV kuthiwa ubanjelwe iTV akaquality correctional uyasayina kakuhle ngenxa yokuthi evelele eTV enceda i-community kanti izigebengo zona nxa zitshintsha funeka ziphinde futhi zibuyiselwe emva siyobanjwa kuthi andazi ndive kabuhlungu i-celebrate zine-show kodwa zi-under correctional kukho abantu abacula endibaziyo mna yeva bayacula mari ba-under correctional siyababona eTV mari thina sithethe nix ngoba yena yo-celebrate or andazi ngoba yena usuke e-Eastern Cape uvalekile akazinix okanye yiloo nto.
Yeah. Not all of you, Daddy, you know, Mzwandile is your father. I just want to find out, you've been with him, for the past 3 years. Now, as we see, he might go back to prison. As we see now that he has been arrested, just how do you feel?
I'm so very, very emotional because I didn't get a chance to spend time with him because all along he was being busy at Tusa community and all, and it's very painful because I can't memories as Banabahai.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Mzwandile's daughter, Noxolo. Of course, we also spoke to his sister who alleged that he was wrongfully convicted. The state owes him. He went underground to help retrieve alive and dead illegal miners, yet he is now arrested. The reasons they were given by correctional services is that he appeared on TV. You would remember that we interviewed him on Thursday when he said he saw a need to volunteer retrieve these illegal miners as he was trying to do right by the community. For now, back to you in studio.
Deborah, thank you. Now, Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge faces the tribunal after complaints that he sexually harassed Andy Swamengo during 2021 and 2022 at the Grahamstown High Court, both in person and via WhatsApp messages. Earlier on this week, High Court Secretary Andy Swamengo testified that Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge said her explicit videos depicting a couple engaged in sexual activity. Mengo made the submissions before the Judicial Tribunal in Rosebank, Johannesburg, tasked with investigating the allegations against the top judge. The tribunal is presided over by retired Gauteng High Court Judge President Bernard Ngwebe, which began public hearings on the 13th of this month. Joining us now to speak more on this is Mbegezeli Benjamin, who is a human rights lawyer and research and advocacy officer at Judges Matter. Hello, and a very good afternoon to you, Mbegezeli. Talk to us, how does this matter speak to the power dynamics within the judicial system?
Good afternoon, Maheketla, and good afternoon to the viewers. Well, this case essentially is about the power dynamics in a workplace environment between someone who is considered a manager or a leader and the junior. But it also speaks to the power dynamics, I think, broadly in society. In the judiciary, in the legal community, there has been discussions around issues of sexual harassment. As we speak now, the Chief Justice is working on a policy that will try to deal with issues of sexual harassment within the judicial system. So this case really fits into that discussion around sexual harassment and sexual misconduct generally.
Yeah, quite interesting point you're raising there. But then you as Judges Matter have also previously issued a statement calling on Benenge to step down, as well as urging JSC to suspend him. What is your stance now?
Well, look, we, from a principled perspective, in all of the cases in the last 10 years, whenever a judge has been recommended to be investigated by a judicial conduct tribunal, that judge has automatically been suspended. And right now, as we speak, there are about 4 judges who are on suspension. Some of them, at the time that they were suspended, they were already on medical leave because they were unwell. For example, the judge who was presiding in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, Judge Maumera, he was already on medical leave, and the Judicial Service Commission said that he must be suspended due to an investigation by a Judicial Conduct Tribunal. So we thought that the JSC will be consistent even when it comes to this case, because what we saw is that Judge Benenge, when the JSC recommended that he be referred to a Judicial Conduct Tribunal, instead of putting him on suspension, the JSC decided to give him special leave. And so we thought that it was inconsistent. It breaks with 10 years of precedent, and the JSC did not give proper reasons why they decided to do so. But much earlier on, you're quite right, Matric, in 2023, when these allegations first arose, we as Judges Matter said that the judge should step down. He shouldn't wait until the JSC acts. He himself must step down, understanding the gravity of the allegations. Unfortunately, that didn't happen again. So at this point in time, we are watching the tribunal quite closely, as we have done over previous tribunals, because as part of our research work is to understand how these processes operate, and we do put forward proposals on how these procedures should properly ensure that they are fair, they're transparent, and make sure that the reputation of the judiciary is still intact.
And so far, as you mentioned, you are watching the proceedings unfold. Are you happy with how they have been conducted?
Well, look, happy is not a good word to use in these circumstances. The evidence that we've heard this week is very, very difficult to hear. It speaks about quite explicitly about sexual activity between 2 people. There were many times that the complainant, Ms. Bengo, actually broke down. She was so emotional that she couldn't continue with giving some of that testimony. So it is difficult. But at the same time, we understand that it must be done in public. Even though it is difficult, we must hear this information because it is an important part of judicial accountability. Our judges have enormous power in terms of the Constitution over, they are the final authority on what the meaning of the Constitution is. But with great power also comes with great responsibility. And so they should be held accountable. This process that we've seen this week is part and parcel of that accountability.
And Benenge is the first judge to risk impeachment for sexual misconduct. How does this change the dynamics?
Well, look, it changes the dynamics somewhat because for many, many years in the broader legal community, not just in the judiciary, but even amongst practicing lawyers, there have been whispers and rumors about sexual harassment, but we have never seen a case reach a point where it is formally investigated by a process like the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. So it is historic in that respect. It is an important case because really it is the first of its kind. But at the same time, it is also an example of where the JSC and the judiciary as a whole is holding its own accountable. Judges are required all the time to act with integrity and with ethics. The Code of Conduct is very clear about that whatever you do as a judge, whether you're doing it in your public role, in your official role, but also in your private capacity, it must always be aligned with the reputation and esteem of your office. So in some ways, we are seeing the JSC act against its own, and that is also important.
Now, Benenge has admitted the content of certain WhatsApp messages exchanges with Andy Swamengo, but said that these exchanges were consensual. Is this a warranted excuse, considering there are 2 different positions?
Well, look, in terms of the legal definition of sexual harassment, it does speak about advances, unwanted advances. So they can be physical, they can be verbal, they can be via text or other communication. They can also be non-verbal when it comes to any sort of sexual advances. But at the end, they must be unwanted, so they must not be consensual. And that is the argument that the judge is trying to argue, is that all of this was consensual, and it probably doesn't meet the literal definition in terms of the law. However, judges are judged by a higher standard than just the law. Judicial ethics require them to behave in ways that are much stricter than perhaps you and I. Later on, maybe if you decide to go out and maybe it happens that you crash into someone's wall, that you as an ordinary person, you can give any kind of excuse. But we do know from past precedent that the judge cannot give an excuse that they went out and crashed into someone's wall. In fact, Judge Mutata was impeached precisely because of that kind of conduct. So in some ways, the work of this tribunal will be trying to answer that question, whether, even if it was consensual, was this appropriate for a judge to behave in this way?
Now that his career and legacy are in jeopardy, that is Mbenenge, what will happen as a result of these claims of inappropriate behavior, and how will it affect his reputation?
Well, look, the reputation is one thing, but I think that the more important thing is the reputation of the judiciary. Certain of these allegations are quite disturbing, and this is part of and parcel of the process that the tribunal will try to investigate. They have to look at his personal conduct, whether it aligns with a person in his role, someone who's the top judge in the province and the sixth most top judge in the whole country. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal will have to answer that question, and they will submit this in a report to the JSC. And when the JSC is making its decision, they will have to look at, is this conduct compatible with judicial office? And if it is not, should he be recommended for impeachment?
Begazeli, thanks so much for your insights. We appreciate it, as always. We greatly appreciate it indeed. That was human rights lawyer and research and advocacy officer at Judges Matter, Begazeli Benjamin, talking to us about the investigation of sexual harassment allegations against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge. Well, do stay with us. The Week in Review continues right after this. Welcome back, and thanks for staying with Week in Review. As we continue to celebrate the Matric results, we often forget about the learners who didn't do well. But the truth is, there are many reasons why learners struggle to succeed in their final exams. Some face unimaginable challenges that make it difficult for them to focus on their studies. But despite these challenges, there is hope. Today, we will be exploring alternative paths to success for learners who didn't do well in their Matric exams. Joining me in studio is our expert guest, Robin Vilagazi, Skills Delivery and Quality Assurance Executive. Robin will share valuable insights on the opportunities available to learners who didn't succeed in their Matric exams. We will discuss the skills revolution, the importance of vocational training, and the many alternative paths to success that exist beyond traditional university degrees. A very good afternoon to you, Robin. Thanks so much for coming through to studio. Just talk to us, perhaps. Let's start here. Your background and experience in education and skills development.
Good afternoon, Mach, and thank you very much for having us here this afternoon. So my background is that I am an executive at the Energy and Water Sector Education and Training Authority, that's EWSETA, and we're one of 21 SETAs. As part of the Department of Higher Education and Training, we look at the skills needs across the various industries in the country, and we're responsible for researching and understanding those needs, and then ensuring that our country's higher education system has the necessary qualifications and infrastructure to be able to take learners through the programs that lead to those skills needs.
Now, let's get into it. I mean, how do you think challenges faced by South African learners we're talking about poverty, violence, and lack of resources impact their ability to succeed in their matric exams?
Yeah. I think it's well documented, in understanding skills development, education and training, that there's a big psychosocial aspect to the ability to succeed in various educational programs. And so, of course, in communities, in different spaces in our country, we've got a range of learners that come from different socio-economic circumstances. And of course, where those are unfavorable, they really can have a negative impact on the outcomes for a learner at any stage of their education, their matric year, and whether it's before, during their schooling, or potentially in their higher education as well.
And what could be the alternative paths that exist for learners who didn't do that well in their matric exams?
Sure. In terms of alternative paths, there are such a wide range of alternatives available to learners, honestly. I think a lot of us think about universities' degrees as all there is that is out there, and during the week we received news and the understanding that even the spaces that are available in universities for those who pass with a bachelor's pass are not adequate to absorb all of those learners merely because of capacity. However, if you look at the working world, most people who operate in the working world do not come from a university background. Vocational and artisanal training is really a very viable means to be able to enter into the economy, whether that is to become an employer, a person who starts a business, or to be working for someone else. So if you look at the people who provide services to us on a daily basis, across the board. You can look at from the building industry, bricklayers, people involved in construction, plumbing, electricians, the culinary arts and other art forms, the health and wellness industry, tourism and hospitality. Most people do not come from university background, and vocational training is the way in which you access those careers.
I want us to talk about that because this is quite an important aspect of learning. Just tell us more about the vocational training and how it can provide, learners with practical skills and experience.
What's wonderful about vocational training is that it typically has three components, depending on the career. The first component is a theoretical training, which is, with your textbooks and you're in a classroom setting. And then in the next phase, you would be doing some practical work in your education environment. You would be doing practical work that applies your theoretical training. And then the third phase of that is a workplace component where you actually go into an existing business, into the workplace, and you practice and hone your skill. And at the end of that program, you would then be a qualified, whatever it is, whatever profession you might have chosen.
Yeah. And what about online courses, Robin, and the certifications? Because those are, I think, are some of the common aspects that learners may venture into. How do they fit into the picture, and what opportunities do they offer to learners?
Look, in terms of online courses and the opportunities that they offer, I think it is worth learners looking at the options that are available online. And it really differs from industry to industry, from career to career. So in many spaces, sometimes you're able to enter into a particular career path by gaining a skill that you can learn about online and where you can undergo the training online. And a lot of times this lends itself to, for example, your IT field, your data analysis and that sort of thing. But I must say, by and large, for most careers, online short courses are not necessarily the way in which you would start off a career, although it can complement, formal education and training, of which there's many options available in the country for education and training. And then short courses are, of course, great once you've started studying or once you've entered into work to hone your skills and to learn more about a particular area of interest.
And you're talking about skills. I think you somehow mentioned the skills revolution earlier. Can you explain what that means and how it's changing the way we think about education and skills?
Very interesting question, Mahe. So in terms of the skills revolution, what we're talking about these days is that historically we've had the careers that existed, the work needed to be done I would say, by humans. And we're increasingly entering into a world where digital technology has advanced in such a way that there's a lot of things that computers can do on our behalf as human beings. So when we talk about the skills revolution, it's about understanding what we refer to as 21st century skills. And this is to say that as human beings, there are unique capabilities that we've got, whether that is critical thinking, the ability to sense the tone in a room, the ability to communicate well, and so on. And we are seeing these skills being increasingly demanded in the economy because some of the traditional skills that were required, quite frankly, are able to be done by computers. And I'll give you an example. By background, I'm an accountant. When I studied accounting, we would be, writing in a general ledger, doing debits and credits. Computers do all of those things nowadays, but I've still got a job, I've still got a career, and that is because I honed those 21st century skills. And so it's very important in education and training these days.
Let's talk about those skills. What skills do you think are most in demand in the current job market, and how can these learners acquire those skills?
To be truthful, and to my previous point, the skills that are most demanded in the market are actually what we used to call soft skills, and they're really not soft anymore. It is those skills such as being able to think, communicate properly, how you go about putting together an argument, how you articulate yourself. Those skills are quite in demand in the workplace, and they work quite well. When you go through an education and training program, when you've got a qualification, there is still competition in the job market, but those who are able to exhibit these type of skills can actually set themselves apart from others who've also got the qualifications. And that's the really important things to focus on. And I think the great opportunity lies in the fact that these skills do not necessarily have to be taught in a formal education and training setting. A lot of them are imparted by taking on leadership roles in your community, however big or small that might be, in your religious environment where you practice your religion, at school. So I think a lot of those skills, the beauty of it is that it doesn't need to be in formal training where you can gain them.
Quite interesting. Thanks so much, Robin. We appreciate you sharing with us those thoughts that would help
Thank you very much.
Those younger brothers and sisters out there who've just returned from the classroom of grade 12 and want to really hone their skills going forward. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
That was Robin Vilagazi, Skills Delivery and Quality Assurance Executive. Now to this, inmates who wrote their 2024 Matric exams attained a 96.2% pass rate. That's according to Correctional Services Minister Dr. Peter Groenewald, along with Basic Education Deputy Minister Regina Mhaule. He awarded those who produced excellence and attained distinctions. 171 female, juvenile, maximum and medium risk inmates from 18 correctional services schools participated in the exams.
Top-performing inmates, among them murderers and rapists who participated in the 2024 Matric exams from 18 correctional service schools, receiving accolades for their hard work. They say this motivates them to take their academic careers even further.
I committed a murder. I murdered my friend. Okay, we were close, by the way. May his soul rest in peace.
I was incarcerated for murder, and for me, I think school gave me the opportunity to not sit in the section the whole day doing nothing with my life, to actually do something with my life.
The National Commissioner of Correctional Services handed over the Matric results to Correctional Services Minister Dr. Peter Groenewald, who officially announced them.
There's an increase of 3% on the passing rate from last year. And this is a record passing rate of 96.2% for correctional services.
Groenewald expressed concern about the high rate of reoffending, saying education could give offenders a new lease on life.
We have a problem. The reoffending rate of our people is too much and too high. And we are looking at that matter. Why? it is also actually reflecting on the part of rehabilitation.
Basic Education Deputy Minister Reginam Haule says the inmates had ample time to attain a pass rate higher than the national average.
Today we gather to celebrate not just attainment of certificates, but the triumph of hope, determination, and resilience within an environment where these qualities can be so hard to find.
The inmates say they hope this achievement will give them a new lease on life. Offenses Timo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Welcome back. Some parents who are still trying to have their children placed at their preferred schools allege that they are being asked to bribe officials to get first preference. The parents say they were asked to pay between 1,000 and 2,000 rand. The Gauteng Education Department has urged them to come forward with information and evidence so that the allegations can be investigated.
Enrique Gana alleges that he became a target of a bribing scheme aimed at desperate parents. According to Gegana, he was asked to pay more than 2,000 rand by an official working at his school of choice. He says the bribe was to ensure that his grade 8 child would be placed there.
I cannot bribe you because school is a government. I pay school fees. Why should I give you money or space on my school? I'm close to the school, opposite to the school, Ebon Primary.
Gegana is not the only parent raising the bribery allegations. The Gauteng Education Department says it's aware of such allegations.
Parents need to be wary, need to be very cautious about such activities. But if they happen to have that information, they must report to the officials, they must report to us. We are there to assist so that we make sure that there's no crime that is committed. I mean, if it's our officials, we need that information so that we can investigate. But these allegations are coming here, on a yearly basis when we deal with admissions.
Meanwhile, some parents who are also scrambling for space were denied help at the Morningside Teachers Center.
When we got here at 5 in the morning to change the school my child was placed at, they told us to turn back and come back on Monday because the person who should assist us is not around.
How is my child going to go to school? And now they just left us, they don't say anything. At least if they said, well, this is the situation, we're going to meetings, or 1, 2, 3, you guys, we cannot be able to assist you as better. People came here at 5, but we're still here. Now they will tell that we must go back and come back on Monday. It's so ridiculous, honestly speaking.
The department says it is unacceptable that parents are turned away without help.
On the first day when we started with this process, some left about 8 o'clock at night. But they would have attended to everyone. So we'll check, as a department on what informed that. But it's not supposed to be in that way. And we really apologize to those parents that would have been turned away. Everyone must be attended.
The department has assured parents that their priority is to see every child in school. Nerea Hlakutsa, SABC News, Morningside, Johannesburg.
Now, staying with that story, the Gauteng Education Department has defended its plans to erect mobile classrooms in orchards north of Pretoria, saying this is the best way to respond to the high enrollment for the 2025 academic year. A piece of land is currently being prepared for a new mobile school to accommodate learners who are not placed. However, some parents have rejected this project, claiming that they fear for the safety of their children. The land is next to a tavern and a railway station that's allegedly prone to criminal activity, including drug dealing. But the department is adamant that proper safety plans will be put in place and has appealed for calm and teamwork.
Frustrated parents demanding schools for their children. They were hoping that their children would be placed here in Acacia, Worshwell, but it's full.
I can't let those kids to be placed in the school while my child is not placed and I stay 2 streets away from the school.
How come as a residential of Acacia, I pay the rates here,
But someone comes with a fraudulent documents, they place them.
They place my daughter go railway school that doesn't even exist.
This land is being prepared for a new school, Railway Secondary. Some community members welcome the plan.
We have come here as parents of this of Orchard. We inspected this. We see how the distance between the so-called the tavern and the situation. So we are fine with that, and we are happy that the government give a school to the children.
But other parents are rejecting the plan, raising concerns about the tavern and railway station that's close by.
This school that is supposed to be here was rejected by community 2022. Now you find yourself in a situation where the school is next to a railway, a tavern, and there's no infrastructure, there's nothing, there's no plan behind that. And what the department has done deliberately so is to create an impression that we have a high pressure volume of learners that need space this side. When in actual fact there's no high pressure if things were done correctly.
They're also alleging that a drug den is operating nearby, and this might put their children in danger.
It's nearby the tavern. How can you place a school nearby the tavern?
Because the school is being built nearby a drug den. The previous year, there was a girl that was found dead nearby the railway station.
Gauteng Basic Education says the project aims to address the capacity challenge in the area as parents struggle to find schools for their children.
We are highly pressured in this area. So this is a mechanism for us to alleviate the pressure. We did not say this is a permanent solution. This is an interim solution because no child must be at home. That's our basis. Those that are criticizing us, they need to don't be inward looking. Look at a bigger picture to say, what is it that we must do as a department? Must we then say children must go and be at home?
There is no high pressure. The high pressure is created by the department so that they can have that emergency funds for justifying the bus tenders, for justifying what you call this one, the containers.
Mabona says it will be a temporary structure that will start in May. For now, the learners who will attend here will be temporarily accommodated at other schools. Gauteng in general is a high pressure area, a lot of demand in this particular province, a lot of influx from other provinces. So these are the issues that the Department of Basic Education is dealing with.
We just plead for patience from parents. We are trying our utmost best to make sure that children are taught because we are so highly pressured.
We want to understand the rationale behind the department that will put a school next to a tavern when bylaws are not agreeing with that.
Meanwhile, the Department of Basic Education in Gauteng could not confirm how much is allocated for railway secondary school, but has promised to prioritize the project and protect its integrity as it draws much interest from various spaces, even local construction businesses who want a stake in the project. Patricia Fasachi, SABC News, in Orchards, north of Pretoria.
Well, the Weekend Review continues after this short break. Do stay with us. You're watching SABC News Live from Johannesburg. Your headlines this hour. Mining forums in the mineral-rich Sekhukhune district are calling on government to issue them with artisanal mining licenses.
Our entire police department will be activated for the presidential inauguration. In addition, we'll be reinforced with nearly 4,000 officers from across the United States.
Donald Trump's inauguration on Monday will be moved to indoors due to cold weather. Preparations for the event have been underway for weeks. The Israeli cabinet has given final approval to the ceasefire and hostage release deal with Hamas. You're still watching Week in Review live from our studios here in Johannesburg. I'm Matric. You can participate, share your comments or ask your own questions by giving us a call here in studio on 011-714-0680 or 81 or 82. It's an honor to have you with us at this hour. We start here. The Israeli cabinet has given final approval to the ceasefire and hostage release deal with Hamas. The decision came after hours of discussions that continued late into the night despite the opposition of some right-wing ministers. This deal was a struggle to get over the line until the very last, but it's finally there. Unusually, Israel's government broke with normal protocol and worked late into the night through the Jewish Sabbath to approve it on the basis that lives were at stake. On the far-right minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has said he will resign in protest. Another Bezalel Matric has said he will quit if the war doesn't resume in 6 weeks at the end of the agreement's first phase. They accuse, the government of doing a deal with the devil and say the main war aim of wiping out Hamas has not been achieved. Our international editor, Sophie Mkoyana, joins us in studio with the latest. A very good afternoon to you, Sophie. The two sides have now agreed. Are Israel and Hamas ready to implement the ceasefire?
Well, we expect them to do so. They've both made a commitment that they will honor the agreement. You know that Hamas has already indicated that they will do just that. And late last night, you saw that meeting of the cabinet in terms of Israel, led by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Early hours of this morning, the announcement that cabinet has approved this agreement, and therefore now we expect preparations in terms of the implementation. As you know, that the ceasefire will only commence tomorrow. And therefore, today we expect both sides to prepare. As you know, that we expect the release of some of the hostages, but also many Palestinians who have been in jail in Israel. That would include now moving these people, particularly when you look at the hostages. We don't know where they are, and you move them from one point to another. It is a movement. It doesn't just happen at the same time, and perhaps you get them from different locations. You also prepare in terms of how are you going to evacuate them out of Palestine, and therefore the same with the Palestinians in Israel. How are you going to move them back to their homeland? And therefore this is an issue of logistics now, but we don't know. We are waiting to hear perhaps the Prime Minister of Israel speaking. Yes, we saw the announcement in terms of the statement, but we still have to get a sense of what is happening behind the scenes. But as you know, that the Israel coalition government is very, very divided. And Benjamin Netanyahu currently is very unpopular. We saw some of those ministers, particularly those from organization, the far right, saying that they are going to resign. And therefore, we are not sure whether when this ceasefire is implemented on the side of Israel, whether the Israeli government will collapse, and that will make Benjamin Netanyahu vulnerable. But indeed, ceasefire must be implemented tomorrow as per the agreement.
You're raising an important point there, Sophie, but previously the ceasefire was violated. Are we now likely to see a similar situation?
Well, many people are hoping, the international community is hoping that the sides will respect the ceasefire this time around. The world is hoping that that will be the case. Many people have died. And when you look at the agreement, this agreement was there since 2023. We could have saved many lives, but there was a hotline from Israel. And therefore now, because it's not the same in terms of the balance of forces and power and support, you know that Donald Trump will be going back to the Oval Office as the head of state of the United States of America. And he had issued a directive that before he gets in that office, this agreement must have been adopted by both sides, and the implementation must start before he gets into office. That speaks to fear, perhaps, from Israel, that the support they enjoyed under Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden now wants to blame Israel in terms of this prolonged or protracted conflict. Really, if America had acted on time and was firm in terms of ensuring that Israel doesn't have capacity to bombard and kill women and children in Gaza, we would have achieved this peace agreement long time ago. But Biden himself, including the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, they kept pumping and pumping Israel in terms of military wear and money and resources and just political support. And therefore, that is why we had this protracted conflict. Now, Donald Trump is saying, no, I'm not going to do that. He has positioned himself or projected himself as a leader who is going to be for peace. So he has to now implement. The campaign was around, he's going to ensure that we have a peaceful world, and therefore America must lead by example. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu and those in his cabinet felt that now we are going to be vulnerable. So there's hope that ceasefire will last, but with conflicts, sometimes one side will violate the ceasefire and then you are back to conflict, and therefore we don't know. People are hoping, and therefore the international community will have to be very vigilant. And those who negotiated or facilitated this peace process or this ceasefire must ensure that they become the guarantors of this ceasefire.
And you talk about the international community, Sophie. I mean, to ensure that the ceasefire holds, it has to play a part, isn't it? Now, has this been taken into consideration?
Unfortunately, I can't say yes, in a sense that sometimes when we talk about ceasefire, those who are guarantors of the ceasefire must also have something like a structure that will do that. I haven't had an announcement in terms of a structure that will ensure the implementation of ceasefire and to ensure that it does hold. For example, if you have the peacekeeping force within the region to ensure that if these two sides want to attack each other, you are there to bring peace between them, or you become an intervention force to repel the attacks. There's no such a thing. So it will be just by luck and by prayer and perhaps by support and persuasion that the two sides do respect the agreement. And I think a country like United States of America can play a very important role in relation to Israel because they are friends. On the other hand, you have Hamas, you have the Middle East countries that are friends with Palestinians, including South Africa. You know that South Africa has been vocal pushing for this ceasefire. We even as a country went to the International Criminal Court trying to use the available legal international law and institutions to try and enforce the ceasefire, but it was ignored by Israel. And this time around, maybe with America now having a different person, new sheriff in town, things will be quite different.
And Sophie, just out of interest, security concerns, will Israel maintain a security presence in Gaza, and will that be acceptable by Hamas from what you're observing?
What we do know is that when you look at the agreement, it's three phases. One, now, and they retreat, they position themselves outside the area. But the last phase of the agreement is a total withdrawal, which is going to be very problematic. And as I said earlier on, when you ask about the violation of the ceasefire, if it is violated, to implement the last phase is going to be very difficult. But perhaps let's take a listen at what the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva had to say about this agreement and issues that we have touched on. Let's take a listen at the spokesperson of the Human Rights Council in Geneva. I spoke to her earlier on this week about this matter. Let's take a listen.
We are relieved we share the relief of people in the occupied Palestinian territory, particularly in Gaza, as well as people in Israel, some of whom will be seeing their family members after 15 months of them being held hostage. But we're also very worried. The ceasefire comes into effect on Sunday, and what we have seen since last night is continued bombardment in Gaza by Israel. We are calling on all parties to do everything in their power to ensure that the ceasefire holds, and that parties with influence as well ensure that nothing is done to jeopardize the first phase of the ceasefire, and indeed to work to finalize the second and third phases as soon as possible.
When we look at what has happened to Gaza in particular, but on both sides, in terms of ensuring accountability, how are you going to ensure that there is accountability in relation to violations of human rights from both sides?
Accountability is absolutely key. What has been behind the cycle of violence that has repeated itself over decades is the lack of accountability, the impunity, and then the collective punishment of entire populations and the dehumanization of entire populations. Accountability is absolutely key. Now, what we have been doing throughout the course of this conflict and before that, and what we will continue to do, is to document what's going on the ground, to make sure that reports of violations are corroborated, verified, legal analysis is carried out, to push for the preservation of evidence, the collection and preservation of evidence, so that it can be used towards accountability processes. As you know, the ICJ is engaged, the International Criminal Court is also engaged, and we have a UN Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, which is also seeking to do this work to ensure that accountability is made possible.
Well, that's the spokesperson of the Human Rights Commission. When she's talking about accountability, you know that South Africa went to the International Criminal Court last year to ask the Criminal Court also to assist to ensure that you are able to have this ceasefire. We know that South Africa didn't only go to the ICJ, but it also went to the ICC for accountability. And with the International Criminal Court, this is where individuals will be responsible and you will hold them accountable. And we've seen that the International Criminal Court has issued the warrant of arrest for the former Minister of Defense of Israel, some members of Hamas, most of them have died, and including the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who can travel freely now because there's that pending warrant of arrest. On the other hand, you have the International Court of Justice, that is the court that is under the auspice of the United Nations. The responsibility there is to ensure that you hold countries accountable that are involved in a conflict. And therefore, you have these two processes, and South Africa led in those processes. Now you have many countries who have joined South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice to demand accountability, but also to try to enforce accountability. And I think this will complement the ceasefire. But you know what's my fear, Mahaketla? I saw that the judge that has always abstained or had taken a different view when voting took place at the International Court of Justice, a judge from Uganda, who looks like she seems to be not really agreeing with what South Africa is saying, and many other countries. She is now going to be the president of that International Court of Justice, and red flag there. Yeah,
Sophie, thanks so much indeed. A story that we'll keep watching closely. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate it indeed. That was Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor. Do stay with us. The Week in Review continues after this short break. Welcome back. Capitec has warned that it is seeing a rise in the number of common scams which can lead to various financial losses. This type of fraud often involves deals that seem too good to be true and has been known to pick up during busy retail periods such as Black Friday in December. Fraudsters have also increasingly been turning to social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook Marketplace to find victims. The news comes on the back of the South African Reserve Bank imposing administrative sanctions on Capitec for non-compliance with the Financial Intelligence Center Act. To speak more on this, we are joined by Chad Thomas, IRS forensic investigator. Chad, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks so much for joining us. This warning by Capitec, is it further evidence of the bank's willingness to cooperate following its fine by the central bank?
Good afternoon to you and the viewers. All of the banks will be sending out warnings and continue during the year to send out warnings, as do the representative organizations for the banks like Banking Association South Africa, SABC, and other organizations like the South African Fraud Prevention Service. I don't think that this warning ties in specifically to the fine that they got last year, which was more in respect of KYC, which is knowing your client and not knowing the ultimate beneficial owners of businesses that had accounts with that particular bank. But it's good to see the banks being proactive and to send out these warnings of scams, which have become so very prolific.
Quite interesting. I mean, what were the findings and sanctions of the Prudential Authority against Capitec?
So they were fined specifically in respect of KYC, which is know your client, and beneficial ownership. With South Africa being grey listed by the Financial Action Task Force and hoping to come off this year, and we think we'd most probably come off the earliest by October following the June inspections. The next inspections are in February, but we doubt we're going to get off the list at that point in time. What the international community, such as the Egmont Group, FATF, etc., have been looking for.
Okay, Chad, sorry to interrupt there. Chad, as we mentioned earlier on, I mean, the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress is meeting this weekend. We'll come back to this conversation. I mean, they are charting a way forward for its January 8 statement and birthday celebrations. I understand that the General Secretary for the ANC, or rather ANC, is actually briefing the media at this stage. Let's go there.
As we reported to you last year, when we're dealing with the matters that relate to Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, that the National Executive Committee will meet and the NWC will report to the National Executive Committee. We did report to you that we had an interaction in both provinces with the structures of the ANC. In the branches in all the regions before and after the elections. And after our second visit, we interacted with the provincial executive committees in relation to our visit and shared our experience and the reports from the branches. And thereafter, we met once more with the PCs to discuss the reports. And we met here at Beachwood. At the end of that meeting, the NWC consolidated its report and considered three options in relation to the challenges we are facing in the provinces. The first option was to maintain the status quo, to do nothing about it in the provinces. The second option was the option of reinforcement and consolidating the structures in the province and reinforce them. And then the third option was to dissolve the structures and start afresh. We said that all of those options will be considered today by the NEC. And we explained to you as members of the media then that nobody is dissolved, as it was the key buzzword. And the dissolution is just but one of the options that will be considered. And we did explain to you that we were simply doing an overview of what has been considered, but in relation to what really obtains in these provinces in our analysis, meaning a perspective of what happened, will be shared with you after the discussions and the resolve of the National Executive Committee. So today we are here and we will give the report of the NWC and the options to the NEC to debate and take a decision. And tomorrow we will conclude those discussions. And immediately before we come to you, we'll report to the ANC structures in the 2 provinces about the decision of the NEC. And thereafter, we'll convene a press conference where we'll give the details of the decision that had been taken. We know you've got very interesting sources in our meetings who sometimes distort what we say, but know this for a fact that the ANC will speak for itself and will not speak via sources up until the Secretary General engages with you. Whoever report to you will be second-guessing the decisions of the organization. So today we will meet, like I said, to specifically consider the matters in relation to the provinces. To us, KZN and Gauteng are very important provinces. And you know that as much as the ANC have shared votes in all the 9 provinces, but we have lost Gauteng. We have lost KwaZulu-Natal. In the KwaZulu-Natal, we registered 17%. And then in Gauteng, it is 35%. So it's not only a blame game, like all others would like to say, that what about the NEC and all of that. The National Executive Committee is exercising its mandate in relation to the Constitution. But over and above, is exercising its mandate in terms of democratic centralism to determine what must be done to hasten the recovery of the ANC in these particular provinces. We're still going to visit all the other provinces. As you know, that we're highly challenged and we have lost power in Western Cape and we're still struggling to come back. So we don't want what happened in the Western Cape must follow us in the 2 provinces. It is important that leadership take decision and give guidance to the structures. We have been told many things, that decisions are being considered for individual interest. That is gossip. You know for a fact that any leadership takes decision. You're not hamstrung because people are gossiping and are talking things that are untruthful and all of that. It is the considered view of the NEC that we've got to intervene in whatever form to strengthen the African National Congress in these particular provinces. All other matters that relate to issues of leadership and all of that, we have reported to you that they've been kept in abeyance, as much as in the WhatsApp groups, board people and all of that, discuss these matters in groups and all of that. But from the point of view of the organization, that discussion will happen at the right moment. At the present moment, all of us, despite everyone's interest, we must and we should be focused on the task at hand to ensure that the ANC regains the momentum and regains the support where we have lost, and work tirelessly to get out of the arrangements of coalitions, GNU and everything else in the local municipalities through the popular vote voted by the masses of our people in their numbers and making us a majority party. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take a few quick questions. Power.
Just a quick question, Mr. SG, a question of clarity. So the final decision will be taken on Sunday, and we will be updated on the fate of the 2 PCs. That's my only question.
You will be updated, and that moment of updating you about that decision will be communicated to you. The meeting starts now, and then it will end tomorrow, probably in the afternoon. And I think after we submit the report, everybody in the NEC would like to speak, especially about the way forward. And then thereafter we'll summarize the way forward in terms of what is the decision. And that will be communicated first to our structures in the 2 provinces, which we promised that this is the final leg, and we'll report to them about the decision of the NEC. So that is what exactly we are going to follow and what we are going to do. And thereafter we'll report to the media. But we would not like to report to the media before we report to the people who are affected, which are the structures of the ANC. But the media will be reported to about the decision, because the decision must be reported to the structures and be explained. to the whole organization. The same as the process we have followed. We have taken the structures along. We went to the branches, we engaged with them, we met with the PECs, we engaged with them, we told them about our own analysis as the National Executive Committee. We told them about the options we are going to be considering, and that we will come back to them about the final decision on the 3 options we have explained to you. So what I'm talking to you now about the options is what we have explained to the PCs of the 2 provinces. So there's nothing that has been done without the knowledge of the structures of the ANC in the 2 affected provinces.
I'm going to go this side, newsroom.
SG Junior Commando from Newsroom Africa. Just a point of clarity. In this meeting, I'm made to understand that it's not only discussions around the PECs of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Is there a point in time where
Well, you were just listening to Fikile Mbalula there, who is the Secretary General of the ANC at the National Executive Committee meeting this weekend in Boksburg, just to chart a way forward after his January 8 statement and birthday celebration. Of course, one of the issues likely to top the agenda there is further discussions on whether the KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng PECs should be disbanded after the province's respective poor performance at the polls last year. And of course, another matter, I guess it will be raised, is the discussions on the state of the alliance ahead of the 2026 local government elections. We'll be keeping you updated on that story as the day progresses, but we expect that meeting to conclude tomorrow, in which we will get to understand what the decision is taken in terms of all the details around the dissolving of structures and starting afresh, as you heard Fikile Mbalula saying that options will be considered in the meeting. But before that, we were on this story where Capitec has warned that it is seeing a rise in the number of common scams which can lead to serious financial losses. And online we were joined, in fact he's still there, we're joined by Chad Thomas, who is IRS forensic investigator. Chad, thanks so much for your patience and staying with us. We were still talking about the findings and sanctions of the Prudential Authority against Capitec. What are those findings and sanctions?
So thank you for keeping me online, and I appreciated listening to the SG of the ANC. Getting back to where we were, in respect of the fines leveled against Capitec, the investigations into other banks like SASFIN, Bank of Baroda, Nedbank, etc., South Africa has a massive problem in respect of money laundering, in respect of the flow of illicit funds. So we've been sanctioned. As a country, we've been sanctioned. We were placed on the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, and we've been closely monitored by organizations like the Edmund Group, etc. And there's certain criteria we as a country have had to meet in order to come off the grey list. Now, a lot of people are quite unaware that we've been grey listed and what the impact of the grey list would be. Being grey listed is very serious. It's a negative perception that the rest of the world has about us in terms of how we manage and control flow of funds. And more importantly, it creates a situation where foreign investors don't want to invest in South Africa because they may be sanctioned. So what we're seeing is the Prudential Authority, which forms part of the South African Reserve Bank, is taking action against banks where they've neglected their duties and obligations in terms of knowing your client, which is KYC, knowing who the effective beneficial or ultimate beneficial owner is of a business that's doing business with a bank. And this is to cut out money mule accounts, it's to cut out money laundering. So we're going to see a lot more of these type of actions and sanctions taken by the Prudential Authority and other regulatory authorities in the year ahead.
Now, Chad, what were the key deficiencies in Capitec's compliance, especially in relation to customer due diligence and enhanced due diligence?
So therein is the problem, and that's why they were sanctioned. There's an onus that's placed on the banks that they have to perform a KYC process, which is know your client. You do it normally during the FICA process, which a lot of people find frustrating, but it's an exceptionally important process, because if you don't know who your client is, you don't know who the ultimate beneficial owner of that account is, and where the funds are coming from and where the funds are flowing, you can enable money laundering. And worldwide, money laundering is a massive phenomenon, especially with the rise in scams, online, digital type scams that are taking place. We've seen about a 40% year-on-year increase in these types of frauds. And of course, with our grey listing, we are being monitored very, very closely by the international community, far more closely than other jurisdictions that are not on the grey list. So Capitec was found not to have the correct KYC procedures in place for certain accounts, and they didn't have the correct information regarding ultimate beneficial ownership, which became a must-have last year in terms of legislation, amended legislation, and legislation that's been enacted to try get us off the Financial Action Task Force grey list and to get our country moving forward. Now, with beneficial ownership, it's extremely important to understand who owns and controls bank accounts, because it's those bank accounts that are used to launder massive amounts of money. And when we're talking massive amounts of money, we're talking billions of rands that are leaving our fiscus through various crimes that have taken place within our jurisdiction. So it's a very good thing that the banks have been held to account, and the banks are taking this seriously, and they're doing whatever they can to ensure that they abide by the legislation to assist our country in coming off the grey list.
Chad, we appreciate your time, and I'm sure this is one conversation that we'll keep having going forward. We do appreciate your thoughts on this matter. That was IRS forensic investigator Chad Thomas. But for now, let's go back to where the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress is meeting this weekend to chart a way forward after its January 8 statement and birthday celebration. They are still briefing the media there. Let's go there.
Illicit mining and abandoned mines is an ongoing issue. Government adopted a crime-fighting strategy that through a campaign called Valamkot. We regret the loss of life of people in those mines, and we caution our people not to embark on illegal means in terms of these zamazamas. And at the same time, the government and the state must act against criminality. So in this particular instance, we regret the loss of life, but the rule of law and the rule of law must be respected in this particular regard. And then we welcome the ceasefire agreement, and it is important to us because ultimately the occupation of Palestine is something that will guarantee long-lasting peace in the Middle East, particularly between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So this is important in terms of our efforts to support and solidarize with the Palestinian people, and that struggle continues. And those who have undertaken the mayhem of perpetuating genocide must be brought to book. And that is why we went to the International Court of Justice as South Africa. And we stand here today once more in solidarity with the Palestinian people. May the developments of the ceasefire propel us to realize a long-lasting solution, which is the self-determination of the Palestinian people. We are among other nations that within the United Nations that are proponents of the two-state solution. And we are still for that, and we believe we will work with everybody to realize this vision.
There's a very last question. Yes.
There's a pressing matter about the Asilo matter of retrenchment. About 3,500 workers. The Minister of Labour was there, but it seems as though there isn't any direction. Just maybe your reaction on this 3,500 people on the possibility of being retrenched.
We want our government to work with everybody to avert the situation of the retrenchments. But over and above that, in the spirit of social dialogue, ArcelorMittal come to the party and work with everybody to avert this massacre, bloodbath of the loss of jobs, 3,500. As the African National Congress, we urge all the parties, in particular ArcelorMittal, to work for averting this bloodbath in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Lunch is served.
I'm inviting you to lunch. Thank you.
Are we having another briefing after
ANC Secretary General there, Fikile Mbalula, briefing the media in that meeting, the NEC meeting in Boksburg. The weekend review continues after this short break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. The Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence is investigating the purchase of a boutique hotel worth 23 million rand by the police's crime intelligence unit. The police says Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has requested the probe, and one MP laid a formal complaint with the IG's office. The MP says this purchase has not been reported to either Parliament's Intelligence Committee nor the Police Portfolio Committee. And if this purchase was made with the Secret Service slush fund, whose operations are undercover, the DA says it's even more concerned about its ability to operate covertly.
The purchase of a 22.7 million rand boutique hotel in Pretoria North was splashed across South African media. The DA says this blows the possible covert operation out of the water.
Everybody knows that the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence is not yet sitting. It hasn't been constituted. That should happen in the next month or two. So if it was meant to be a secret, in other words, only something revealed to the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, perhaps a front in a specific exercise, the fact is that now it's front page news. And that speaks volumes in terms of their ability to keep information secret.
The DA and Action SA are questioning the operational purpose of this purchase, especially considering that the security cluster was asked to tighten its belt due to finances.
What I'm seeing is what I feel is a return to the Richard Mdluli days, where the slush fund, that is the portion of the crime intelligence budget that is revealed to the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, as opposed to the open budget, which is revealed to the Police Portfolio Committee, that is being used for the most extraordinary activities.
South Africa continues to bear witness to escalating violent crime driven by emboldened organized crime groups that seemingly face no consequence from SAPS. Action SA believes it is frankly unacceptable that crime intelligence remains led into the abyss, failing to fulfill its critical mandate in protecting South Africans.
Political parties say they hope the building, which has a gym, an infinity pool and 4 dining rooms, wasn't just purchased for them to have meetings. They say there are crime intelligence operatives who have to work from their vehicles, while others have to work in broken, dilapidated slum offices. Kola Barnard says when buildings are used for front purposes as part of covert operations, rental stock is used. If it, however, was not acquired for this purpose, the purchase should have gone through the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, which is responsible for all government buildings. Public Works says it was not aware of this transaction. The official response from the South African Police Service is that it doesn't comment on strategies and operational decisions taken especially within the crime intelligence environment. Kola Barnard has written to the Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence calling for an investigation. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
Now, with US President Donald Trump claiming responsibility for the ceasefire deal in Gaza, it's clear he's been willing to intervene in foreign affairs, even before officially retaking office. But after he formally returns to the White House on Monday, what will his second term look like beyond America's shores? His new administration is vowing to end wars in Europe and the Middle East, yet it will still have to contend with major geopolitical hurdles. Benji Haya has this report on what Trump 2.0 means on the global stage.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Donald Trump, exactly 8 years ago, laying out his worldview. Will it be the same this time round? On Ukraine, he had pledged to end the conflict in a single day, though he's not said how, besides suggesting that a negotiated settlement is the way forward. His government may decide to reduce, pause, or even reverse US military aid, or make it conditional on Ukraine participating in talks. The incoming president wants NATO members to spend 5% of their GDP on defence. That's more than double the alliance's current target. But whilst he demands a boost in funding, he's also threatening to annex the territory of some of NATO's own member states. Donald Trump, ever the unconventionalist, has expressed a desire to buy Canada and, perhaps through military force, seize the Danish province of Greenland, insisting the US needs the island for national security purposes.
Trump's also just a lot more unpredictable. Biden and, for that matter, most presidents, certainly most Democratic presidents, have had a pretty common thread of things to do. Trump is different, even different from past Republican presidents, in that, what he wants and what matters to him not only can change from, week to week, month to month, but also is not always consistent with some kind of, vision of what the U.S. position should be overseas.
One thing that has remained consistent is Donald Trump's staunch support for Israel in its 15-month offensive against Hamas. He believes that this weekend's ceasefire agreement happened as a result of his recent election victory. The president-elect's laid out a grand diplomatic agenda in the Middle East, one that includes building upon the 2020 Abraham Accords, when two Gulf nations normalized relations with Israel. Morocco and Sudan were later signatories to that pact.
I'm greatly honored to host this lunch, to be joined by the leaders of Côte d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Ghana, Guinea, Namibia, Nigeria, Senegal, Uganda, and South Africa.
Despite Donald Trump in the past referring to African countries in a disparaging manner, using a derogatory expression to describe the continent, his first term did see the birth of initiatives such as Prosper Africa, aimed at facilitating economic engagement. And he may be forced to engage again in a bid to counter Chinese influence on African soil. But Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who served as the US Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs for 4 years, is downplaying the threat of competition with China in Africa. She believes America should play to its strengths to fend off its superpower rival.
There's not a single country in Africa that does not have a significant diaspora here in the United States. American citizens who are part of influencing our power. That's not happening in China, and it ain't happening in Russia. It only happens here in the United States, and that's our superpower when it comes to the continent of Africa.
In just a few days' time, Donald Trump will be back in the Oval Office. He's promising to focus on issues here at home. No new wars, he says, a non-interventionist presidency. Yet in reality, he is offering an increasingly expansionist approach, and he'll have his hands full as he tackles a raft of challenges the world over. Benji Haya, SABC News, Washington.
In Fairfield, US President-elect Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping have discussed the upcoming ban of the social media app TikTok in their first phone call since 2021. The incoming US president has described their conversation as quote-unquote very good.
Well, Donald Trump won't be back in the White House until Monday following his inauguration, but he and his Chinese counterpart have already been in touch. President-elect Trump announced the news of their phone call in a post on social media. He wrote that there was a very good call for both China and the USA. He said the two of them discussed balancing trade as well as fentanyl, and that's an issue that the current Biden administration has been concerned about, with Washington accusing China of not doing enough to prevent the deadly drug entering the US. The two men also talked about the Chinese social media app TikTok. It's scheduled to be banned in the US on Sunday, and on Friday morning, the US Supreme Court ruled that it would not stand in the way of the upcoming ban, as it rejected an appeal by the company. President-elect Trump also said that he and President Xi will do everything possible to make the world more peaceful and safe, and he added it was his expectation the two of them will solve many problems together and starting immediately. China's foreign ministry reported that President Xi had said he and Mr. Trump attach great importance to mutual interactions and hope for a good start to the China-US relationship once Mr. Trump is back in the White House. This is the first time that the leaders have spoken since 2021, when Donald Trump was last president. Donald Trump's first presidency was a time of rocky relations with Beijing, exacerbated by a trade war and the imposition of billions of dollars of tariffs. Relations have improved little under President Joe Biden, and although the tariffs are expected to stay in effect and perhaps even be increased as Trump has threatened, the new Trump administration could be an opportunity for a reset of relations between the two countries. Nick Harper, SABC News, Washington.
Now, small businesses within the tourism sector are optimistic about business prospects in 2025. Having ended 2024 with renewed optimism, the owner of Furaha Guest Lodge in Johannesburg, Prudence Maputa, says the number of events due to take place in country this year, like the G20 summit, mean more business opportunities. Lower interest rates may also encourage South Africans to spend more exploring their country. Between January and October 2024, South Africa welcomed 7.2 million visitors, a 5.7% increase compared to the same period last year.
To run a guest lodge business can be beneficial if done with love for the business and managed correctly. Even when she was formerly employed and practicing as an industrial psychologist, Prudence Maputa says she knew that formal employment is not for her. She set herself a target of being employed for only 5 years before embarking on the entrepreneur's journey. In 2020, she got into the hospitality industry.
In the beginning, it was challenging because we started in 2020 during the year of COVID operating. So we started the property, the first property that we started operating in. I got the property in 2018, and then in 2019, that's when the renovations started in preparation to operate as a guest house, not knowing that something named COVID was on the way and hospitality industry would be one of the worst hit industries. So early 2020, when we were preparing to launch the property, then COVID hit, and obviously we couldn't even start operating at the time. But you know, I've always been an optimist, and I guess as an entrepreneur, for any entrepreneur, I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of them, without optimism, you will not survive.
Maputa says over the last 4 to 5 years, business has been good. This as travel restrictions were lifted immediately after the COVID pandemic, and more people were keen to explore the country.
We went to a point where I was personally financing the business and always stressing the people that I work with, like, no, work hard. I can't always be putting money into this business and so on. We moved from that point to a point where the business is able to sustain itself. The business, don't ask me about the numbers later on, but where the business is even making, some profit. So for me, I consider it really a blessing that, coming from COVID to a point where we are currently, where I don't have to worry about the finances of the business.
The property boasts 2 mansions consisting of a 6-bedroomed house and an 8-bedroomed house. This week, SA Tourism says it has so far secured 53 bids for international events in the 2024-25 financial year. These events are expected to generate 616 million rands for the economy and attract over 24,000 delegates between 2025 and 2029, further cementing South Africa's position as a premier destination for global conferences and events. This will translate into even better business for Furaha and other businesses like it. Maputa says this is a good time to get into the hospitality industry for aspiring entrepreneurs.
If you're passionate about the industry, don't let anything deter you from entering the industry. I believe that in any business, there's always going to be competition. There is no business that you're going to open and you're the only one operating and getting all the business in the world. There's always lots of other businesses doing, and go in and make sure that you offer a service that's gonna put you among the best in your industry, even if you're not really among the best as in your top 5, top 10, whatever, however way you're rating it. But if you are passionate about the industry, just go in and learn as much as you can about the industry. We were blessed that I came across, I've indicated Mr. Khan earlier on, who knows so much about the hospitality industry, because I must say, I don't think my knowledge, even now, I still need to do a lot of learning. I think learning is a lifetime thing. Learn as much as you can about the trends in your industry, what's happening in your industry, what you need to do to satisfy your customers, and to grow your client base and so on. But never be deterred by anything that, especially competition. I always say there'll always be enough business for everyone. Just make sure you've got a product that really, really can sell well out there.
Yep.
Well, that's it for today. Join us again tomorrow on the Week Ahead, right here on the SABC News channel at 12 p.m. SA Today is up next at the top of the hour. From myself, Margaret Lamatabe, as well as the rest of the Week in Review team. Thank you for watching. Do take care.